South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis. We need your help to secure our future.
With the world's lowest birth rate, the very existence of South Korea is now at stake.
While the birth rate has plummeted, moments of joy remind us what is at stake.
A beautiful wedding, yet the number of marriages continues to decline, deepening the demographic crisis.
These four represent the demographic shift. As the younger generation shrinks, the burden on the elderly grows, creating concern for the nation's future.
A vibrant society needs the laughter of children. Yet, South Korea faces an unprecedented
While the scenery is beautiful, South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic crisis. The younger generation is quite literally fading away.
The silence here echoes a national crisis. South Korea now has the lowest birth rate in the world.
This nursery, like so many others across the Republic, stands empty. The lowest birth rate in the world is threatening our very survival.
The writing on the wall is clear. Unless birth rates increase dramatically, classrooms like this across the nation will remain vacant.
South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic cliff. With the world's lowest birth rate, the future of our nation is at stake. South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic shift.
Who can tell me the replacement rate?
Is it 2.1, teacher? As you can see, the birth rate has fallen dramatically. We are simply not having enough children to sustain the population.
Despite numerous government initiatives, the birth rate continues to decline. What exactly is the solution?
With the birth rate plummeting, the burden on the working population is increasing. As the wheel shows, we are relying more and more on our aging citizens.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic challenge. While our current population pyramid is stable, the low birth rate threatens this structure. As the birth rate declines, the burden on the young generation becomes unsustainable, threatening the stability of our entire society.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis. This ticking bomb threatens to undermine the economy and social structure if we don't act now.
The math is simple. A declining birth rate means fewer young workers supporting an increasingly large elderly. In the office, the working monkeys are stretched thin. Long hours and high costs mean fewer cubs are being born. The birth rate is critically low, and our population is aging rapidly. We need more young monkeys to support the economy.
The shrinking workforce is one of the most immediate threats. Where there were once 5 gorillas to support the economy, soon there will be only 2.
The latest figures show a rate of 0.72, far below the 2.1 needed for replacement. This decline demands urgent action.
As you can see, for every 3 couples, only 2 children are being born. This declining birth rate poses an urgent threat to our future.
The numbers don't lie. Our population is aging rapidly, and there are simply not enough children being born to sustain our future.
The math is simple but stark. As the younger generation shrinks and quickly ages, the burden on the working population becomes unsustainable.
South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic crisis. The birth rate has plummeted, threatening our economic future. This trend is simply unacceptable. With the working population shrinking and the number of dependents rising, the strain on the system is becoming critical. Can President Lee hold it together?
The latest projections paint a grim picture. South Korea's population is facing a dramatic decline.
The economic consequences are already visible. As the population shrinks, local businesses struggle, leading to
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis. Time is running out to address the rapidly declining birth rate.
But experts worry this stable family structure is disappearing. For you, the youngest generation, the future.
The family tree is shrinking rapidly. The dotted lines represent the missing generations, a stark indicator of the demographic cliff facing the nation.
As these cubs grow, they represent the future workforce. But with falling birth rates, there simply aren't enough to sustain the system.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis. The falling birth rate threatens to leave our future barren.
While we encourage larger families, the reality is our aging population and limited resources present a significant challenge for the future.
The data is stark. Our birth rate has plummeted, as shown by this indicator, threatening the very foundation of our society and economy.
For money, the monthly paycheck vanishes almost instantly.
highlighting the economic strain contributing to the crisis.
The cost of living in South Korea is among the highest in the world. Rising expenses for housing, education.
The government attempted to tackle the crisis by arresting the culprits: wage stagnation and inflation. With some of the longest working hours in the developed world, it's no wonder that the birth rate continues to plummet. Workers are simply too tired.
Despite significant incentives, the costs remain daunting.
Oh, darling, isn't this frame lovely?
We need more than just sparkles.
Despite incentives, the reality for many is harsh. Savings are quickly exhausted by rising costs.
Faced with the soaring costs of housing and education, many young Koreans are putting off marriage and children. The future of our nation rests on the next generation. But with the world's lowest birth rate, who will carry that burden forward? With the lowest birth rate in the world, scenes like this empty nursery are becoming increasingly common across the country.
South Korea is facing a demographic cliff. With the world's lowest birth rate, scenes like this empty playground are becoming tragically common.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis, highlighted here in green. The birth rate has plummeted to the lowest in the world.
Despite all efforts, the numbers continue to fall. We are reaching a critical point, and the strain on our society is already showing.
The working hours in South Korea are notoriously long, contributing to the lowest birth rate in the world.
As these charts clearly show, the demographic cliff is fast approaching. We are running out of time to address this critical issue. This extreme competition for limited resources is a major factor in the nation's declining birth rate, creating a demographic crisis.
This crowded scene hides a deepening crisis. South Korea's working population is struggling, and the birth rate has hit a record low.
As the clock shows, long working hours are a major factor contributing to the nation's declining birth rate.
While these company dinners are culturally mandatory, they represent the long hours that make starting a family so difficult for many Koreans. While the birth rate declines, the pet industry is booming. Long working hours leave little time for family, making pets the preferred companion. Years of long working hours and the high cost of living have left young Koreans with little time or energy left for starting a family. The data is clear. South Koreans are working themselves to the bone. There is barely any time left for sleep or eating.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic crisis as the birth rate continues to plummet.
The pressure on young families is immense. I can't afford both the rent and the nursery fees.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic challenge. The birth rate has plummeted, threatening our future prosperity.
With the longest working hours and the highest cost of living, the dream of starting a family is shattering under the pressure.
As the cost of living rises and job security fades, many find themselves questioning if they can afford to raise a family.
The economic burden on young adults is immense, leading to widespread frustration and a reluctance to start families.
4B, 비연애, no dating. 비혼, no marriage. 비출산, no babies. 비석스, no intimacy.
The 4B policy remains highly contentious.
Too far!
Not enough.
South Korea is facing an unprecedented demographic cliff, a crisis that threatens the very future of the nation.
President Lee sheds a tear for the rapidly declining population. This crisis threatens the foundation of our society.
South Korea is facing a demographic cliff. These happy cubs must quickly grow up to join the workforce, but the economic burden is immense. The gates are closing on a generation. With the world's lowest birth rate, South Korea faces an urgent threat to its survival. South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic challenge. The children who should be filling these desks simply aren't here.
These empty swings are a stark reminder of our demographic crisis. The birth rate has fallen to critical.
The streets are quit, a symptom of the looming crisis. South Korea now holds the regrettable distinction of having the world's lowest birth rate.
South Korea faces an unprecedented demographic crisis. Our countryside is emptying as the birth rate falls to the lowest in the world.
With the birth rate plummeting and the young increasingly seeking opportunities abroad, The demographic crisis in South
This is the reality of the demographic cliff. With the world's lowest birth rate, towns across South Korea are vanishing, and time is running out.
Empty storefronts are becoming an increasingly common sight across the country, a stark reminder of the demographic challenge. This demographic imbalance places an immense burden on the working generation, threatening to splinter the foundations of the economy.
With fewer young people entering the workforce, shops remain closed, even as they desperately seek staff.
The demographic crisis is straining our healthcare system to the breaking point. With fewer births and an aging population, is the looming crisis. A shrinking youth population struggling to support a rapidly growing number of elderly citizens. As the population ages, the burden on the shrinking working class becomes unsustainable, threatening to topple the economy.
We simply cannot sustain this. The burden on the working generation has become unbearable.
The crisis is deepening. If current trends continue, our population is projected to be cut in half by the end of the century.
As the birth rate declines, homes across the nation grow quiet. The refrigerator, once the heart of the family,
This empty table symbolizes a growing crisis. Birth rates have plummeted, threatening the very future of our society.
These cherished moments of family and friendship are becoming rarer. As the population shrinks, these scenes risk fading away entirely.
This empty table represents a growing crisis. The birth rate has fallen to a record low, threatening the nation's future.
The alarming truth is reflected here. Our young workforce is vanishing. This decline poses an urgent threat to our nation's future.
South Korea is currently facing a critical demographic crisis. As the birth rate plummets and the population ages,
The population decline in South Korea is accelerating rapidly. As the birth rate falls, we are left with
We face the deepest waters of a demographic crisis, but President Lee has made it clear, we will never give up.
In 2006, the total fertility rate in South Korea dropped to 300, signaling a drastic decline.
This mountain represents the $200 billion we've invested, but it's clearly not enough to solve the crisis.
To combat the declining birth rate, the government is offering significant bonuses for new parents. Ensuring a bright future for the next generation is crucial. But with declining birth rates, who will be left to enjoy the bananas? A shrinking young population means fewer workers supporting the economy, despite the optimism of the younger generation.
Generous government support programs, including housing subsidies and childcare assistance, are now available to encourage families.
The nation is facing a critical turning point. Despite significant efforts, the decline in population continues to worry officials across the board. The latest figures from the Bananyang Group confirm our fears. The population decline is accelerating, threatening our future workforce.
the total fertility rate has dropped to 0.72, far below the 2.1 needed for a stable population. The life cycle speeds by, yet the birth rate remains critically low. We celebrate our graduates, but worry about the future workforce.
Education costs are skyrocketing. This elaborate gown represents years of expensive private schooling, a major burden for young families. Facing the demographic crisis requires monumental effort. Yet, as the government pushes forward, the barriers to change are finally breaking.
Time is running out, so the government is implementing new rules. This includes rent caps and addressing the huge financial burden of bills and school.
Despite government efforts, the influence of the chaebols and soaring housing costs make starting a family feel impossible. We must adhere strictly to these new guidelines if we hope to reverse the demographic winter.
The latest projections show a significant rise in the birth graph for 2025. The fertility rate has
South Korea's fertility rate has plummeted to 0.75, far below the 2.1 needed for a stable population.
As demonstrated here, the fertility rate has shown a promising upward trend in the last quarter.
The clock is ticking. President Lee has enacted new policies, yet the burden of rent and education costs continues to weigh heavily on young families. The demographic tunnel seemed endless, casting a long shadow over the future of the Republic. But look, a beacon of hope approaches.
With generous new subsidies, the government hopes to support families like this one, bringing much-needed joy and stability. The situation is urgent. We must address the declining birth rate immediately, or the consequences for our society will be severe.
That